God, I really hope you can't hear my laptop because that's really loud. Hello and welcome. My name is Nina and I've decided, you know what? I want to talk about knitting on the internet because I'm an expert, right? I'm not. I'm really not. So to give a bit of context before I kind of dive into some of the projects I've been working on, I've kind of been knitting for just over a year. I think it was last year in around February, March time, probably more like March, April. I really started knitting. I'd knitted a bit beforehand as kind of a just out of my teens, started university. I think the first time I'd ever actually picked up a knitting needle and some yarn, I think I was about 15 or 16 and was like, I will knit a scarf for a friend of mine who still has that scarf, I will say. But I think my knitting skills have improved considerably since then. But yeah, so it was around March, maybe April time last year that I decided to kind of get back into it. I can't even really say back into it because I didn't really do it. I'd made like a beanie, which I still have. It's really out of shape. I think I've posted about it on my Instagram last time I was back home, but I am proud of it. But it's not perfect, and it doesn't have to be, and I'm okay with that. But yeah, so my mum's been knitting for years, and she's kind of the main reason I got into it, and I kind of thought it was a good thing to kind of do to keep me busy, keep that mind occupied, you know, but yeah, and it's just completely gotten out of control. It's fully in control. I haven't got a problem. But yeah, so I'm just going to share some of the projects I've been working on, and my plan is to kind of keep you updated on them. I've got a lot of projects. That's something I plan to get into later on in another video about the kind of problem I got into with my knitting, where I just wanted to start new things all the time and I wasn't finishing anything, so I kind of started like a project pan, but for knitting. A project finish object, if you will. I don't know, I'll think of a name. Before I show you the first project, here's another obsession of mine, Lego. This beautiful Harry Potter Hogwarts castle took me so long to build, and I'm so proud of it, and I don't think I'll ever take it down. It needs dusting, but I'll never take it down. Anyway, that's just a side thing. So the first thing I quickly wanted to mention is actually something I finished, just because it kind of leads into why I'm now knitting the thing that I am. So this is a pair of socks, clearly Nina, clearly, which a friend of mine asked me to knit for him because he saw that I'd made some really beautiful cashmere socks that I posted about on my Instagram account, and he was like, I want some. And I was like, look, I'm happy to make them for you, but the yarn's expensive. I think for the pair of socks, like I have a bit of yarn left over from them, but you're holding literally 100% cashmere double. So they're really fluffy and amazing and soft. I'll share those properly in another video. But I was like, look, mate, the yarn's gonna cost you like £100. I was like, but I can look into some cheaper options for you. So I made him exactly the same socks. It's a pattern that I got from a shop called Laniato in Vienna, in Austria. I'll share the link and everything down below. But it's just a simple like 1x1 rib, and then you just have a cable pattern that you can sort of see here, that just runs across it. It's quite a simple design. They're just kind of, you know, made to be for snuggling around in bed and not really for like everyday wear. But the yarn I used for this is actually from the Fibre from the lovely Georgie, and it's in the colour Shipwreck, and it's a plumpy base, so it's got a bit of cashmere in there, so it still gives you that kind of really nice feel, but is a lot sturdier than my cashmere socks. I'm afraid to really wear them except when I'm lying down, and I'm like, I must lie still and not move and not rub them because that yarn was expensive. Thank you to my mother for buying that. I don't think I could have justified spending it as much as I wanted to. But yeah, so I made these, and I used 2 skeins of her plumpy sock yarn, but I had some left over, and the reason I'm friends with him is because I went to school with his girlfriend. And I kind of said to her, I was like, look, you have tiny feet. Do you want me to make you a pair of socks out of the scraps? So I'm just holding it single. I've got one already finished, which needs to be blocked. Look at this little guy. But I did a sort of similar thing for her, but kind of wanted it to be a bit more everyday wear, or a bit more, less kind of luxurious, because that was held double. The that sock I just showed you before. This I've just held single. And it's kind of weird because I think this is the first time I've kind of went a bit rogue with a pattern, because I just used one of those like sock charts where it kind of just tells you how many stitches to cast on if you're doing, you know, 4-ply sock, which it is, for which size. Which is weird for me. I have really big feet, so making these itty bitty socks feels really weird. I hope they fit her. I'm a bit worried they're too big, which is weird normally with me and my giant feet. I'm about a 41, 42 European. But yeah, so I kind of just designed my own sock pattern, so it's got a really kind of short little cuff there. I didn't do any sort of like anything after it before I started the heel, which I think is stupid, thinking back on it now. But it's done. I'm not gonna undo this. I'll make her another pair of socks and be like, look, this is a prototype, my first kind of design, if you will. And I did this kind of slip stitch heel. So it just has like a bit more of a pattern to it. Just mainly I did it because I thought it looked nice and would be a nice thing to kind of include as a bit of like, look, I've got a bit of a pattern here. But I've also, since I first started these, because I've been doing these for like over a month now, I'm really sorry that they're not done yet. I should have sent them to you a long time ago. But it makes the heel apparently a bit sturdier, which is always a nice thing. But I did the same sort of cable design on these. Obviously it's much shorter because she has much smaller feet than her boyfriend. But yeah, so you can see the kind of cable pattern there, and because it's not held double, the cable pattern also isn't as big, but I think it's quite cute. So I finished one of these a little while ago, and I'm currently on the second one. I've done the heel, done the gusset and everything. I'm just working on the foot now. I've got the decreases to go, and doing the cable pattern on top. This is a mess, Nina. What you doing? There we go. Yeah, so I've started that cable pattern at the top there. But there's still a decent way to go. If I actually bother to sit down, just go, Nina, just knit for an hour. You do that anyway, but for some reason I think it's cabling. It hasn't always been my favourite, and especially because I'm obviously using 4 needles for the actual sock, and then I've got, you know, my 5th one. And I think that's part of the problem, that I then have to use another needle, and I don't have more of these. I've got like some wooden ones that I got as part of like a sock set that I bought from Aldi over Christmas, and it feels different using a different needle. So then I'm just like, I can't convince myself to do it. It's the decrease rounds and the normal rounds, perfectly fine, happy to just knit away. As soon as I'm like, oh, this round's a cable round, I'm like, what else can I knit? Which is stupid because I want to give these to her. But well, now that I've made this video, I have to make progress, right? By the time I update you, like, they have to be done. I have to block them and send them off. That's my goal. There we go. Motivation. This is why I'm doing this. But yeah, so this yarn, the colour, all of it, like, Georgie, you are amazing. I have so much of your yarn, so much stuff I still need to make, and so much more I still want to make. So thank you for your business. If you hadn't come into my life, I don't know what I'd do. But yeah, so that's object number 1. Well, working whips. I don't like it. I'm sorry. I know it's a big thing in the knitting community to talk about your work in project, work in progress object things. You know what I mean. I don't like calling them whips because it just makes me think of actual whips, and then I'm like, that's just painful. And yeah, welcome to my life, welcome to the weirdness that is Nina. But hang on, wait, one more thing to do with this. Such a tiny little ball! And this is the one that's left over from the one I've already made. Because obviously I was holding the other ones double. So then I just used one skein of the leftover skein to make the sock. Just to get a rough idea of how much yarn I have. And to be honest with this, I can probably, with these sized socks, I think I might even be able to make another one. If I'd been smart, I would have weighed this one before I started, weighed this one now it's done, and been able to figure out, you know, could make another sock. Either way, it will be used. That yarn is lovely. I'm thinking about some scrappy projects. I like saying scrappy projects. That will be coming at some point. I've got a little bag where I've collected things together for scrap projects. Not that I have any idea what I'm going to make. Like, I've looked at some patterns and I'm always like, I just don't know. But I'm keeping that all. I'll put all the socks back in so it actually looks full, because currently there's not much in there. This is a little project bag my mum made. So I think it was in September. My parents live in Dubai and I went to visit them just to kind of get a bit of a break from everything that was happening here. And she kind of was like, I really want to make a project bag, I've seen videos, and while mum very much is the knitter in the family, I would say I've kind of been more of the sewer in the family. I did a lot at school and all of that, and so mum kind of asked me for advice and I kind of tried to offer as much advice as I could, but it's always kind of hard to kind of talk through with someone. But anyway, she finished it. I think it's lovely. She has complaints about it and I'm like, it works and that's all that matters, and it's beautiful. I think this fabric is from IKEA, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, so that's my first whip. It's probably the last time you'll hear me say that. Next thing, I've got everything on the floor, of course I do. With editing, that might never, you might never know that. But let's be honest, I'm probably going to keep it in because it's very realistic, isn't it? Oh no, it's entangled. Give me a second. Here we go. So, in some ways it's perfectly fitting that I'm filming this on the 1st of July, just as Georgie's Fibre Fox cow, so knit along, another one of those abbreviations for you if you've never heard them before, has finished, and I'm still going. Not on mine, so it was a love note that we were knitting all together, and I'd started mine I think back in like January or February, got through most of the lace and then was like, cool, next project. I'll get into all of that another time. But so then when Georgie was like, oh, I'm thinking about running a knit along, what would people want to do, and everyone was talking about the love note, so that's by Tin Can Knits. And so I was like, well, I've already got it, and it did use some Fibre Fox yarn, because you're holding a fingering weight and a mohair together, or some kind of lace weight yarn. And I was like, well, one of them's also using the Fibre Fox's yarn, so that's fine, it totally can still be part of it. I'm just gonna, you know, technically speaking, have cheated because I started before I even knew it was a thing. But I finished that one quite quickly because there wasn't that much left to do, and as soon as like the 1st of June hit, I was all like, yeah, let's get knitting, let's get this done. And like busted through that so quickly. Sleeves are my weakness. They always take me the longest. But when I kind of was at the end of mine, I started thinking, well, I'd like to knit another one. I feel a bit bad making myself another one so soon. I will be in the future, I've already got one planned. But I thought it would be quite nice for my niece. So my niece is turning 4 in September, and I just thought it would be quite cute, so I got in contact with my brother and his fiance and kind of said, like, do you want her to pick the colour or what do you want to do? And we eventually settled on kind of a green colour. So I'll show you what it currently looks like. It's so tiny. So I have split foot sleeves. I used some scrap yarn because I couldn't be bothered last night when I did this to go get another cable. Well, 2 cables, one for each sleeve. So I was like, I'll use scrap yarn. I will hate myself for that later because the mohair sticks. Well, this isn't actually mohair, but the kind of, it's Suri alpaca, I'm just saying now. It's gonna stick a bit. It's not as sticky as the mohair at least, but yeah, so you can see that gorgeous lace pattern, which, quite funny, the first love note I did when I started that lace pattern, I think it was the first time I'd done lace. I'd maybe done one other project, maybe with some socks where there were a few yarn overs and knit togethers and stuff like that to make a cute lace pattern, but it was, I think this is like the proper real lace I've ever done. And it was fine. I did not know about the whole, if it's a 12 stitch pattern repeat, you can put in stitch markers. That way you can hopefully, you know, prevent yourself from making mistakes. Didn't know about that. Just wung it, just went for it. It worked out fine. There were a few mistakes, but I feel like when something is handmade, it's gonna have mistakes. And that can make it a bit more special than if you just go and buy something. So I don't care about mistakes. They happen, and if they're really bad, I do try to go back and fix them if I see something, but other times I'm like, that's just the beauty of handmade. But with this one, because I did it so soon after my love note, I just breezed through it. And I'm gonna say it, there's not a single mistake in the lace. There's not a single mistake yet at all. And I'm gonna completely jinx it, aren't I? I'm gonna say there's not gonna be any mistakes. Maybe in the sleeves, because I hate sleeves. But yeah, and I don't know if you'll be able to see because my camera's having trouble focusing, but there's a little stitch marker. So that's from the Corner of Craft. It's a little like kind of turquoisey blue dragon, which I got recently and absolutely love it. They are so adorable. I will definitely buy more. Worth it. And it just makes the project really special. Plus I kind of imagine that my little dragon's like flying over like a meadow or something because of the green. Let me talk about the yarn. So I went full Fibre Fox. That's gonna, probably not this time, but probably with future videos, you're gonna see I've got a bit of an obsession with Georgie's yarn. Not just Georgie, there's other people too, but I've got a problem. So I'm using her, what is it? Merino sock. That's what she calls it. Her merino sock yarn. So I think it's about 425 meters and 100 grams. This is the color Kiwi, so it's quite green, but like some lighter greens, some dark greens, gorgeous. And then using Suri alpaca just because I was like, if I use mohair and my niece wears it and goes, it's itchy, she's never going to wear it again, is she? So we're going to use Suri and be all like, it's extra soft, it's costed me more, but I love her, so it's okay. So holding those two together. So this is Bahamas, also by the Fibre Fox, and it's got, I don't know how well you can see it, but it's got some green, it's got some blues, and they just, I think, work up beautifully together. It's probably coming out a bit more poppy green on camera, but it's just when you see it up close, you get some of that brighter green from the Kiwi, and then you get a bit of the speckly blues coming through. It's, I'm potentially considering, you know, ordering myself some of this yarn. Probably making something else because I want a love note in a kind of yellow colour, and I've got most of the yarn ready for it because I have a huge stash. Because the one that Georgie made for the knit along was in her honey colour, I think. Yeah, it was honey, and I love yellow. I love anything yellow. But here you can kind of see, well, the cute Fibre Fox logo, and then also just what Bahamas looks like. Absolutely incredible. And I was like, when I first saw that Georgie was launching the Suri, I was like, oh yeah, cool, but I'll use mohair. Now that I felt it, I love it so much more. I've had my issues with mohair. It sheds, it gets everywhere, in my mouth. It's unpleasant. But this I found hasn't really shed all that much. It doesn't stick to my clothes, and it also just feels so much better, and it's not as sticky, so probably gonna, you know, move away from the mohair, bring in the Stil. My bank account won't be happy, but I'll just get a better job. Anyway, but yeah, so I'm at the body now. I've done the raglan increases, I've obviously finished the lace, split the sleeves. So considering I'm making the 4 to 6 year old size, just because she's quite tall, so even though she's quite slim, I think it's better to kind of have a bit more, I don't know, just have her be able to grow into it a bit more. And I think especially with the way that this is designed, it's okay if it's a bit oversized. I wouldn't want it to be that, you know, it's not broad enough in the shoulders or something, and hopefully this way she can get quite a decent amount of use out of it. I just hope she loves it. I think she knows she's getting it, but if she doesn't, or if she forgets, great. Lovely present from her aunt. But I am hoping that this won't take too long. I am doing the longer bodied version. I don't want her, I don't think she wears anything where she could wear kind of like a crop top, so it's going to be the long version. And I'm thinking about making the sleeves potentially longer than the kind of 3/4 that it says in the pattern. But we'll see. Probably just talk to her and her mum and her dad a bit and just kind of see how does she feel about long sleeves, and is it irritating, because like, as you can see, this is meant to be long sleeved. I put long sleeved items on and immediately go whoop. So why would I ever knit something that's long sleeved? Because I just immediately slide it down. I very rarely don't have my sleeves rolled up. So with my love note, I think I did make it roughly 3/4, but it really is just like, just slightly sits above my elbow and just, oh, it's still always roll it down. It still needs to be blocked, so it's not officially finished. But yeah, so that's the second item I kind of wanted to share, and I love it. I love it so much. So the next one that I've been working on, I'm going to leave, I know which one I'm going to leave for last because it's the main one I've been working on. I think this one should be quite quick for me to talk through. Let me remember which side is front and which side is back. This side is the front. So in this, as you can see, this kind of like honey mustardy kind of colour. This is going to be, it's worked flat. I haven't done anything flat in quite a while because I hate sewing together. And part of me always goes, why would you work flat if you can work in the round? I do see benefits to working flat for some things, and there's some things you can kind of do much easier, but most of the time I might just do it in the round. And this pattern I think could be adjusted. So it's called the Aisha top. I can't remember the designer's name. I think it's like Olga something. I'll leave everything in the description box if you do kind of like any of the patterns, and I'll try to also leave what yarn I've been using, just, you know, if you want to check it out. Send Georgie your business, give her some money. But this is something I've wanted to knit since I first kind of got back into knitting again. I found the design on Etsy originally because I didn't know Ravelry was a thing. How life has changed. And I saw this cute little summer top, so it's like a little camisole kind of singlet, and it's got, if you can see, quite a few different patterns. So the first one here she calls like her snake pattern, which I think can be quite hard to see. So I've got two of those, cable to the left, snake pattern again, cable to the right, snake pattern again, and then this netting, and then it just mirrors on the other side. And at the start I was like, I don't understand how I'm meant to do this. I'm checking the pattern every single row and being all like, oh, I have to memorize what row I'm on. But then eventually I remembered, Nina, you know you can read stitches. And all you're doing, like for example, with the cable sections, which aren't really cables, it just looks like it's cabled, your yarn overs are just shifting and your decreases are just shifting. It's not that hard. And the netting is literally just that you knit 3 stitches and then one gets passed over both of the remaining stitches, and so that's how you get kind of like that netting effect, and that just shifts across, so it just shifts back and forth. That's easy. The snake pattern, or what she calls the snake pattern, is literally just yarn over, then knit 2 together, or knit 2 together and then yarn over. What's hard to remember? And the back side, you purl when it looks like a purl and you knit when it looks like a knit. That's not hard. Took me a while to get there though. But yeah, so I've been working on this for quite a while. The bottom of it was really interesting. I've never done a cast on like that. I think she calls it double ribbing, which might be a thing, but I'd never done it because I had to cast on with 2 contrast colours and then using 2mm needles. Right now I'm on 3, the cast on was on 2. I've never worked with anything that small. Even with socks, that's like 2.5. Well, those socks are 2.5. But you kind of do these increases, then you work like this faux 1x1 ribbing, by knitting one and slipping one with yarn in front. And then you eventually do decreases and then you start to work the lace pattern. And I literally just sat there and was like, this is new, this is terrifying, but what we're gonna do, we're just gonna work through it step by step. Forget about what the end goal is, forget about what the next step is, we're doing one step at a time. And so I'm really happy that I've made all this progress. And really, once again, just felt like I've improved as a knitter, which I think is an amazing thing. But yeah. And the yarn that I'm using is from Stoff and Stil. I think they have an online shop, once again. I'll link everything below. Throw you all the love. But yeah, I'm up to the decrease for one side, as you can see there. And we'll hopefully have this done soon. Still have to do the back and the straps. So I'm being optimistic when I say really soon, because 3mm needles. This was meant to be done with DK weight yarn, but when I bought the yarn for this and when I started, I didn't recheck the pattern. So I kind of just was like, oh, she used the yarn I bought for it, perfectly fine. And then checked, and I'm using fingering weight and it's meant to be DK. So it's much more open and revealing than it's meant to be, but I don't really care. I think it looks beautiful. The size will still be fine, and I'll just wear a singlet or something else underneath it. I don't really typically wear stuff like this out all the time in public anyway. It's more if it's hot and I'm at home. That's fine. Yeah. Aisha top. Don't know if I said that. By Olga somebody. But yeah. I love the colour. Cool. So the second to last thing I want to talk about is one where I've had the yarn. I think I bought it before Christmas. And kind of didn't have a plan for it, and then was like, oh look, these random skeins of yarn might actually work really well together. And I'm quite proud of it. When it's finished I might all of a sudden realise they don't work together. But anyway, so this is currently all I have because it's so slow going. This is the Norbu shawl. I think that's how you pronounce it. And it's literally every row is different. So looking at that pattern is really intense. And it also just means like I really have to have the time to have, you know, like my laptop in front of me and be able to follow along. So obviously there's repeats within the actual row, but then it's not like you go, okay, do this for 5 rows, or here's how it repeats every 5 rows or something like that. It literally is, every row is different. And I think because I haven't spent much time focused on it, I might be able to, you know, see patterns within it and be like, oh well, you know, like I said with the Aisha top, that you can just see, oh well, your yarn overs and your decreases are just moving. And I'm sure that's in there, but because I knit so many different things, I just don't dedicate enough time to this. So I do want to try and focus on this a bit more, especially because, so it's going to be a shawl. It's kind of, she calls it a shawl scarf hybrid, because this is how wide it's going to be, and it's just going to grow longer. So you can see this kind of purpley tail of yarn. Can't remember what the cast on was called, but what you end up doing is you cast on, so this is 100 stitches wide, but you cast on 200 because you're working from the middle to the end, and then you come back, pick up these stitches here that are still live and on the scrap yarn, and then you do exactly the same thing you did and just do it again the other way. And I'd never done that cast on before, and I thought it was amazing, because what a genius thing to not start at the beginning and work your way to the end, but start at the middle and work your way out. I think it's cool. But this yarn, you surprised? It's by the Fibre Fox again. So I've got 2 Fibre Fox yarns that I'm using for this. So this is obviously a much more kind of very pale, muted sort of pastel rainbow. So you can see some of the colours in there. And this is much more vibrant, still kind of rainbowy, but much more purple and stuff like that. So I can't remember the names, so I've got them ready on my phone, and I also don't think I'll be able to. I think this one is Rainbow Drops and this one is Dreamer. I could be wrong. Sorry, Georgie. Obviously not as big of a fan as I thought I was, but I thought these were quite cute because it's the same sort of colour story, but obviously this is much more vibrant. And then the last one I have is this one here. I don't know if you'll be able to see, it actually has some sparkles in it. So this one's actually by Truly Hooked. Once again, let me look up what this one's called. Wallflower, that's it. And as soon as I saw that name, I was like, I have to have you. I love that. Perks of Being a Wallflower, one of the most amazing books and movies I think I've ever seen, and whenever I'm having a bit of a rough day or something, it's one of the things I really like to watch. So having a yarn called Wallflower just made me really happy. But yeah, so I'm hoping, because the pattern does call for 3 different coloured yarns, I'm hoping that will work quite nicely. I still haven't decided. So this is colour A. Will this be B? And this C? This C, this B? We'll find out. To be honest, I think it won't make too much of a difference. I think it might make sense to have it in this transition because there's more blue in here, and then that transitions to more blue, less purple. And there's like blues and purples, goes to more purple, goes to more blue. We'll see. But progress is slow. What needle size am I using? 3.25. That's right, because I wanted to start another project and I was like, where are my 3.25 needles? And these aren't interchangeable. I bought them for a project I made for my niece, a little pinafore dress, and I needed 3.25 and 4. And back in the day, didn't think about interchangeable needles, don't think I knew about them, was all like, yeah, let me just constantly buy needles with all these different length cables instead of just investing in an actual set. Done that now. Problem fixed. But yeah, so I do quite like it. I think it's cute, but let's not even talk about how much more I've got to knit of this. I do enjoy it, but like I said, it's a very intense knit. It's not like something with a jumper where, you know, you get to the body and you know, with a lot of jumpers, you're just knitting. You don't have to keep track of anything, you just keep going and occasionally whip out that measuring tape, see how far you've gotten along. Life's good. But this one, it's a bit intense. And then the last one. I am so excited to share this. I've still got a long way to go. Part of me's like, I keep acting. I'm just talking and I'm not even in frame. Great, Nina. The last one I've got to share is the one I've probably been working on the longest. Not really the longest, because some of these I've had since, well, for months now, and this I think I started in June. Maybe. But it has just worked up so quickly. Let me get the last ball of yarn. There we go. Back in frame, and look at my little perfume collection and little postcards, which I think I've sent to a friend of mine in Australia. And I keep saying I need to send more, but I've run out of stamps, and I'm like, I don't want to go out and buy stamps. So I'll have to wait. But are you ready for this? Don't think you're ready for this, because it's got a lot of it's got a lot of ends because there's a colour change involved. Let me get it the right way around. Look at that. Look at that. Let me try and hold it up a bit better so you can see. There you go. Oh! It's the Taha Moana Shawl by Aroa Knits. Stunning. I swear every pattern I've seen of hers, I'm like, yes, yes, I'm here for that. And just absolutely incredible. So there's a bit of a story with this one, because the yarn, let's go through the yarn first, because then maybe you'll see why there's a bit of a story. So these are the 3 colours that I've used. So you've got, I started with, obviously, my main colour is this grey. Let's start there. This is my 3rd Volt yarns, so run by Lola, and I'd never bought from her before, and kind of looked at, she was part of one of the virtual Yorkshire Yarn Fests, which I have loved during this crappy time in the world, to kind of just be able to see some new vendors, but I'll probably do a whole nother video about that because I like yarn, and I think what Sophie's done is just absolutely incredible. So I discovered her through the virtual Yorkshire Yarn Fest, and I knew at the time when I was looking that I wanted to make the shawl, because I'd seen these which were launched. So these are from Castleview Yarns, so Jen dyed these up. It's her summer collection, and it's Moana inspired. I love Moana. Before I get into all of that, this colour here, it's kind of speckled green, it's got a bit of blue in it, a bit of yellow. It's called the Heart of Te Fiti. Stunning. This one here is Beyond the Reef, so you're kind of transitioning into more blues, a few greens, and then this final one is my favourite, called It Calls Me. And it does, it calls me. But I saw her summer collection, which I think she launched for the virtual Yorkshire Yarn Fest, or launched it during that Saturday, and immediately I was like, yep, goodbye money, hello beautiful yarn. Okay, we had some issues, camera was overheating, memory card was full, took a break, weather has changed, everything could be different, could be a different day for all I know. Anyway, the last thing I was talking about was with the Taha Moana Shawl with Jen's new summer collection. It's raining and I'm talking about summer. Welcome to Britain. Anyway, so I kind of want to talk about, so that yarn collection is Moana themed and why it means so much to me and why I immediately was like buying it, buying it, buying it. So I had lived in New Zealand for almost 12 years. I'd finished school there, did my bachelor's, did my master's, and then eventually decided it was time for me to move on, leave, and just end that chapter of my life. There's a lot of reasons for it, but kind of the big thing I want to focus on is that I was about 24 when I left, so almost half my life I'd lived in New Zealand. I wasn't born there, I'm from Austria, can't you tell by my accent? But it was, you know, half my life pretty much had been spent there. I grew up there, I became an adult there, I really learned a lot about myself, and the New Zealand culture, it had an impact on me. And a big thing at the university that I studied at, so I was in Wellington and went to Victoria University of Wellington. They did have a name change issue a while back, but I think they've stuck with it. Anyway, and one of the big things, I was studying chemistry, and a big thing there was to try and get more Maori and Pacifica students to kind of, you know, engage in science, engage in university, because they weren't being represented at university and then therefore weren't being represented in kind of jobs that required those degrees. And I kind of became a kind of mentor and would try and help out Maori and Pacifica students to really make sure they're getting the support they need to make it through to the end of their degree. And so then having Moana be released, and it released when I wasn't living in New Zealand anymore, and just seeing how those, obviously it's not set in New Zealand, it's set on kind of a Pacific island, but it's in the Pacific. And to kind of see a little girl, you know, obviously she starts out really small at the beginning of the movie and then grows up, and seeing a Disney princess be a Pacifica girl was absolutely wonderful. And that really meant something to me, having worked with some Pacifica students and things like that, and to really see that representation now as a Disney princess. Obviously one movie is not enough, but it was very beautifully done. The music and the whole thing with her discovering that her ancestors were voyagers, that song, and I think it was sung in Samoan. It makes me cry every time I see it. I own the movie, watch it all the time, and when I was casting on this and kind of like winding up the world, I was watching Moana, and it was just an absolutely beautiful experience. So it was, that yarn meant a lot, then finding that shawl to go with it was perfection. And let's just talk a bit more about the shawl. So, let me hold. So it's kind of a sort of square with a triangle missing, so it's 3 triangles connected to make an almost square, with that third triangle being where your body is gonna kind of go. That makes sense. I'm gonna say it's a no. But anyway, so I'm just holding it up so you can sort of see that middle triangle, because that's probably the easiest one to see. I've got so many stitches. I think I'm at like 550 if I haven't already said that. And it's just, it takes a long time. But, so the grey, you start with a little, I think it's called a garter stitch tab, and everything in the grey is just garter stitch. Super easy, and you can see increases here and on the other side, and that's just done with yarn overs. Super easy. So I've got the stitch markers, which just indicate that when I'm on a right side row, when I get to them, do a yarn over, knit the middle stitch, slip the marker, yarn over again, and keep working in garter stitch. So super easy, super quick, and then it's quite fun when you get to the lace section. It's a 6-row lace pattern, and you do it twice, so 12 rows of lace, and then you do 6 rows of the garter stitch again. And it's quite interesting because, like with a lot of lace, I guess, like I've kind of talked a bit about with my previous projects, you reach a point where it just makes sense, and it just becomes very therapeutic, and you just don't even really have to think about it. It's also when I make mistakes, but that's fine. It's part of the beauty. But it's a really nice lace pattern, and I say it's a 6-row repeat, but rows 1, 3 and 5 are all different. They're the right side rows with the actual lace. On the wrong side rows you're just purling every stitch. So that's easy. I find those rows the hardest and the most boring, and really hard to motivate myself to keep going, but it helps that the yarn's really beautiful, and knowing, like, seeing it grow now that I've got the 3 colours, it just makes me so happy. So I've just finished off the 6 rows of garter stitch with my grey, and the next thing is I'm going to work in Beyond the Reef again, 6 rows of garter stitch, then do the Heart of Tafiti, and then kind of garter stitch again, and then binding off the stitches. So I'm getting there, but I think the shawl finishes at like 660 stitches, something like that, so still got over 100 stitches to increase, which is fine. I am enjoying it. It's just it's slow going now because I've got so many stitches, and I do like to finish a row, which means you really have to have that time for it, and you have to be able to dedicate that time to sit down and be like, gotta do a whole row. And sometimes it takes me longer than an episode of something that I'm watching or listening to, and I do occasionally take breaks within a row, but it really is just like a quick put the shawl down, have a bit of a breather, regain my thoughts and my energy, and then go back to it again. But I think this is probably one of the most thought out and amazing projects I think I've ever worked on, because normally I'm like, I see yarn, I'm like, ooh, I love this yarn, I'll buy this yarn, ooh, I love this project, cool, combine, yoo-hoo. But with this, I saw the yarn and knew it needed a special project, and kind of wanted something to do with New Zealand, wanted something to do with the ocean, because I think, does Moana mean seaside? Taha Moana I think means seaside or seashore or something like that. Probably completely wrong, and I'm very sorry and I greatly apologise. But I'll leave a little description below to kind of correct myself, or you know, with the magic of editing, this is what it means. But it is a very special project to me, and I don't want it to ever be a, oh god, I gotta work on that again. No. Then I'm like, then it's not the project that you should be working on right now. This is not meant to be something tedious, and I do feel like that with all my knitting projects, but with this one even more, because just all the feels and all the connection. So, but I've loved it. So I can't wait for this to be finished, even though the weather is garbage right now, and not like I'm going outside anyway. But when it has been hot and just wearing a t-shirt, and then when it gets a bit cooler in the evenings, it's just nice to be able to just throw that on instead of like going for a blanket or putting on a jumper or something. So, I've been loving this. Yeah, that's it. That's all the projects I wanted to talk about from all the footage I currently have. It's gonna be a long one. Hope you like that. And my plan is kind of to update you on these projects, you know, every month or so, and also show us some of the projects I finished in the past and talk about the sort of problem I had with casting on too many projects and never finishing anything. So that's probably the next one I'll film, let's be honest. So these aren't actually all the projects I've currently got going on. They're the only ones I'm really working on and making an effort on working on. So I think the next ones I'll show are the projects where I'm like, hey, I cast them on, but they've been abandoned since 2019. So I'll get on to that. and I'm just trying to stay focused and not cast on too many things, which is hard. Especially when you're working on winter things in summer. It's not what I want, it's not ideal, but it's my fault. But yeah, so that's it. Hope you liked it. And, you know, the usual. Subscribe, like this video, and I think the biggest thing for me is leave me some comments, like, what are you working on, what are you loving right now, and is there a special project that you've been working on or have in mind that, you know, you're just waiting for the right time to cast on. That's it. I've had my little spiel, which I'll hopefully be a bit calmer now and not be like I need to talk about my knitting all the time. I still do. Anyway, lovely. Bye, see you next time.